Is there no other route to take? Let's see. In this case. Is this going to be sufficient? Somebody have to die. It's almost time to make their decision. Time to decide who to cast away was imminent. And so, Natsuhiko came to his decision. I'll stay. I'll stay with Watase and Mr. Ukita. I could understand their determination, and it didn't seem like anyone could convince them otherwise anyway. So Natsuhiko sent telepathy to Watase. Watase glanced at Natsuhiko, as if to ask, "You okay with that?" Natsuhiko gritted his teeth. Of course he wasn't okay with that. I don't want to do it either. Of course I don't want to die. Natsuhiko had made a promise to get Yuri out of there no matter what. Made a vow to himself. No matter what happened from here on out, he'd protect Mashiro and Salio. He didn't want to go back on his word. Natsuhiko had been protected by everyone else this entire time. This is the least I can do to repay that debt. With that thought, Natsuhiko smiled back at Watase. Oh boy. Well, that's a lot. Watase fell silent and said nothing. Eventually, he nodded resolutely. When he heard that whisper, Natsuhiko sent the same sort of telepathy to Ukita. Then, as if triggered by Ukita's voice, Watase jumped at Salio. Salio's body stiffened for a second. Before she could ready herself, Watase hit her in the neck with a knife-hand strike. Salio groaned and fell on the spot. Kazumi and Jun shouted in shock. Without stopping, Watase wrapped behind Mashino and squeezed her neck. Sorry, girls. She fell unconscious all too easily. Everyone stared in wide-eyed surprise at Watase's abrupt actions. Anna covered Yuri in confusion. Yuri looked at Natsuhiko and shouted. When he heard those words, Natsuhiko shook his head and used telepathy. Do I have to go to your head, Natsuhiko? Yuri's telepathy was filled with her emotions. Her grief, her concern, and her desperation. Natsuhiko smiled and gave his answer. In spite of Yuri's desperate telepathy, Natsuhiko used Senses Sympathy on her, and he blew away her memory of the present, the same way he once did to knock out Watase. Oh, wow. That final thought. Yuri fainted. Oh, God. When Natsuhiko returned to reality, he saw Yuri slowly falling to the floor. Anna gasped and caught her. Oh! Watase used that opportunity to take the gun out of his pocket and pointed it at Kazumi and the others. Wow, we're really going full blow with this. We're gonna sacrifice ourselves by force. Kazumi glared at Watase. Watase looked her back in the eye and answered. Anna and the others trembled at Watase's angry shout. Watase spoke with a stern voice. Kazumi couldn't keep quiet. I got mind powers now, you little punk. Kazumi's expression warped at those words. Right when she tried to rush over at him, oh no! Watase pulled the trigger. Bullet landed by her feet. Kazumi stopped. Watase continued. Four survivors? Or is he not counting Anna because she can take care of herself? Jun spoke tearfully. Eventually Kazumi nodded bitterly. As Watase squeezed out his voice, his face warped in bitter pain. He lowered his gun and addressed everyone. 3 minutes? Oh, she just sounds defeated. Pained. Kazumi muttered and then shouldered Yuri. That one word just sounded so... Oh, that hurts. Jun took Mashiro and Anna took Salio. Before they left the control room, the three turned around and spoke. With those words, the women left the room. The men left behind sighed heavily. Natsuhiko and Ukita nodded at Watase's words. Then they stood in front of Brain Cell's control terminals. They watched the clock and waited for the time to open the bulkheads. At Watase's signal, they operated Brain Cell. They stole root authority, canceled the case end declaration, and opened the bulkheads. They had no means of checking if Yuri and the others had escaped, but... Natsuhiko and the others believed in that. Where's the case... Where's the case end declaration? They laughed faintly. Their facial expressions were blurred with resignation. Just wait for the explosion now, huh? Naturally, their chances of survival looked hopeless. That was for sure, no matter what Cosby and the others said.
渡瀬、今何時だ？
18時6分だ。
爆発まであと10分か。
The moment he muttered that, Natsuhiko was struck by an intense fear. In 10 minutes, I'll be erased from this world, and blown to bits before I can feel any pain, buried deep beneath its pitch-black earth. I could no longer escape to the outside world. I would never see Yuri, Mashiro, Sally, or his mother again. Once the realization of that truth crushed his mind, Watase and Ukita spoke up.
さて、生き残る術を探すか。
Oh shit.
え？
Natsuhiko couldn't believe what he saw. They kept speaking as if they were only natural.
生き残るには、この施設の中に爆風が届かない場所を作ればいい。で、爆風ってのは基本的に情報かつ広い方に向かう性質がある。
なるほど。では爆風はゼロエリアから N エリアへ上がってくるから。
N エリアのゲートを第2エリア方面だけ開けておこう。すると爆風はまず第2エリアに向かう。したがって反対側の第5エリアは比較的安全になるはずだ。
うん。その上でシェルターに入れば生存率はさらに上がるな。
Oh, alright.
そうさ。だから早速動いて。
何を言ってるんだ？
Natsuhiko could no longer keep himself from interrupting their discussion.
テトリル爆弾はラボを丸ごと吹き飛ばすほどの威力があるんだろ？そんな小細工で生き残れると本気で思ってるのか？
何もせず手をこまねいているのは嫌いでね。それにその方がお前が生き残る確率が上がるだろ。
何？
そうとも夏彦君は少しでも安全そうな場所に逃げるんだ。避難場所はやはりシェルターがいいだろう。
隣のエリアだし自力で行けるよな。
自力って？
Oh.
お前はどうするんだ？
バカだなお前。そんなこともわからないのか？
Watase spoke with a wry smile on his face.
爆風を第2エリア方面に逃がすためセキュリティゲートを開くには俺たちがシェルターに行くわけにはいかないんだよ。
Oh.
ありゃ開いてからしばらくすると勝手に閉まるからな。だから N エリアから第2エリア方面に続く連絡通路のゲートを爆破のタイミングに合わせて俺たちが開くしかないのさ。
Natsuhiko gasped at those words. But Ukita calmly nodded in complete understanding. As some people break under extreme pressure, some people collapse under life and death pressure, some people find just serene sense of clarity. And that's what these two have right now.
セキュリティゲートは連絡通路に2枚ある。僕ら2人でちょうどいい。
They're just in complete agreement right now.
そんな。
分かったか？分かったら早く行けよ。
悪いがそれこそ議論している時間がないもんでね。
God, these two. Watase and Ukita smiled. As if they had known from the start that it'd end like this and that Natsuhiko would react this way.
おじさん。
Natsuhiko's voice quivered as he muttered their names. Watase looked at him and spoke with a wry smirk.
バカだな夏彦。どうして泣くんだ？お前が俺たちのために涙を流す必要なんて何一つないんだぞ。
そうとも。僕らはテロリスト。君は巻き込まれた被害者。僕らを罵ることはあっても悲しむことなんかないさ。
でも。
Natsuhiko stopped and said no more. Eventually, Watase looked at him and muttered.
さあ行け夏彦。もうじきタイムリミットが来る。
急ぐんだ。君がシェルターにたどり着かなきゃ全て無駄になるからね。
With those words, Natsuhiko cast his head down. And with that answer, he rushed out of the control room. As he He made his way to the Area 5 shelter. Tears formed in Natsuhiko's eyes.
くそちくしょう
He once thought of them as enemies he had to defeat. But the tears wouldn't end, no matter how much he wiped them. There was no guarantee that Natsuhiko would survive, even with Watase's and Ukita's fatal wager. There was no reason for them to make that wager in the first place. Perhaps that was their way to atone. But still, that's just... His entire body ached from the wounds Watase had inflicted upon him. What hurt the most was his heart. Natsuhiko arrived at the shelter. He sat on the ground and thought to himself. Tell me, Watase, we were supposed to be partners whose lives were in the same boat, weren't we? So why do I have to survive when you have to die? I promised that everyone would get out alive, together. That included both you and Mr. Ukita. This was Watase's final wish. So as his partner, Natsuhiko wanted to respect his will. With that thought in mind, Natsuhiko covered his face with his hands and heard a thunderous roar off in the distance. Roars and tremors approaching through the floor. You could feel an intense force and extreme heat rushing through the facility. From Area 2 to Area 3, and through Area 4, all the way to Area 5, where Natsuhiko was. Take cover. Natsuhiko yielded himself to the thunderous roar, and softly shut his eyes. Oh god. Ukita, of all people, is an interesting character, isn't he? As hard as it might have been to buy into his good intentions, after seeing how he was in the after route, and seeing his... for most of the second half of it, influenced by malice. Despite ultimately having good intentions, I feel like his story was the hardest to buy into. And yet this one ending just went miles as far as putting him over as just a good person. Like, his RAM segment told us that he was a bit of an idiot, an idealistic idiot, but that he wasn't evil. Just got the impression that he's an idiot. He's idealistic. He's not interested in violence against his fellow man, despite being involved in a terrorist group, who clearly has no qualms against it. But if anything could have happened that just kind of cemented his place as just a good person, it was this. He did what he had to do in the end. Oh, that's it. Salvation from the root. Result of the three at fault remaining in LABO. Be able to avert this fate just by making a decision that ties to another possibility at least. Senses Sympathy input just before this ending. Otherwise, by looking into Akita's, Jun's, and Enna's Salyu's memories in more depth with the RAM system, the information energy in LABO can be raised to extremely high concentrations. Doing so can perhaps unlock even more fates. There's no epilogue. So did Natsuhiko die? This ending? I'm a bit surprised that there's no epilogue here. Did their last-ditch plan fail? Why? Or is this just meant to be ambiguous? I want to compare it with one of the other endings, but they obviously don't know yet which order this will go up in. But maybe based on that other ending, it was always hopeless, and there was never going to be a place where they could go to survive the explosion. One way or another, on their own. Or at least that survival would be a very high roll of the dice. But, damn. I wouldn't have ever expected that just the lack of a scene would be that big of a gut punch. Ah. But it was. So I suppose we're going through the endings in the order you decided on. So, I suppose, depending on where this fell on the poll, we'll see what comes next. And if we've gone through all of them, we'll see what we can do about raising the information level. I could have sworn we dove deeper into everyone. If there was one that we didn't, it was Salia, but I don't remember ever getting an option, though, with Salia. That's the strange thing. I suppose I've mentioned this each time now, so one way or another, someone will probably fill in the blanks for me. Which, depending on how my weekend goes, it may or may not be a tip that I'll actually take into account. Because if I get time to record more, I'll probably try and power through it myself, figure out how to get there. But if not, I still always appreciate hearing your advice and comments and thoughts in the comments section. I just enjoy hearing from you, period. It's really keeps me going, so to speak. Man, we've reached the normal endings, so I have no idea how long the true path is going to be, but I guess we'll see. Because we have the true path, however long that goes. We have the bad ending compilation. Then we have whatever extra content might come after that. I think the extended edition comes with extra character stories and the like. So, we'll see. There's still a fairly solid chunk of meat in this game. It's been a hell of a meal so far. For some parts that we had to power through, but man, has this route delivered. Pulling everything together. I suppose, all in all, up until now, there's just like small bits that dragged here and there. There's never anything that could go back. There hasn't been anything I can go back on and point to as a downright negative. Because everything that I found negative at the time, game found a way to come back around and justify its existence and make it worth it. Just how well it built through each arc. Just totally engaging story on all sides. So, I'm excited to see what comes next as far as endings are concerned. Whether it's the next normal ending or discovering the true route. We'll see you next time. Until then.